A word of warning, this podcast explores graphic and disturbing stories and includes some strong language. It therefore may not be suitable for our young listeners or other folks who may find it disturbing. Hello and welcome to True Crime News, the podcast covering high-profile and under-the-radar cases from across the country every week. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. Our case this week, the judge said he was evil and had a depraved heart. The judge also said he was motivated by greed and jealousy. Within hours, this man had killed his brother, his sister-in-law, and their 2 children, then set their mansion on fire to destroy evidence. Then this evil man set his own house on fire while his wife and 2 children were asleep in the home. Thank God they got out alive. What was this brilliant idea? Make it look like someone was trying to kill the brothers because of their lucrative tech business. Well, the real motive, say prosecutors, the man was secretly stealing money from the business, and his brother had figured it out, and the mansions and the luxury cars were about to come to an end. We're recording this on Friday, May 22nd of 2026. Our guest today is Rich McHale, a former detective from New Jersey, an author, a friend of the show, a friend of mine. Hey, Rich, welcome back.
Hey, Anna, nice to see you again.
Nice to see you. So one of the reasons we chose this case is because it is out of New Jersey, where you spent much of your career, but also because it really brings us back to something that we see as motivation for murder, but almost like a sibling rivalry. I know it's deeper than that. There are financial motives here, but usually there's always one brother who maybe isn't successful as the other one and is struggling, maybe not like the other one, even though on the outside they may seem fairly equal.
This definitely has a lot of different elements to it: greed, jealousy, and one of the the main actor, spiraling out of control. There's a lot of things going on there. One thing that I couldn't find in the research that I did was Paul's behavior or activity leading up to this event. There's a lot of information on the case itself, but I'd be curious to know what was his behavior like in the recent past, and then going backwards. Were there other signs of violence? And other inadequacies that could have been picked up sooner.
Right. And I always say that the most dangerous time as a crime is being committed, particularly murder, one of the things is when the perpetrator feels that a secret is about to be revealed, that something is going to come to an end, and they kind of lose it. And this is where this all exploded, because the other brother figured out what was going on, had called him on it, and said, "This is coming to an end and I'm cutting you off." And so the house of cards was about to fall down. And the evil brother, as the judge would say, is the one who thought, oh, well, if I wipe out the entire family, his brother's family, there won't be any heirs, and therefore I will inherit the majority of the trust, and I will inherit the business insurance and all this other. That's why prosecutors say he killed everyone, to eliminate all heirs.
Yeah, and the possibility of witnesses to the killing of his brother and then his wife. Very tragic, nonetheless. And I don't know what we're talking about, how you come to do something like that, but it's hard for all of us to fathom bringing ourselves to do something that drastic.
Especially the children. This is a quadruple homicide.
Horrific.
4 people killed at once, 2 of them children, 1 millionaire brother killing another. This is out of Monmouth County, New Jersey, and the crime scenes spanned 2 communities there, Colts Neck and Ocean Township. And Colts Neck is a really ritzy part of New Jersey. Like, people like the Bruce Springsteens of the world and the Bon Jovis of the world live in this part of New Jersey. Very fancy.
A lot of people who, business people who commute to New York find this as a quiet, rural community where they can have a nice house, a nice property, and still work in high finance in New York City and make the big bucks and yet come back to New Jersey and live in peace and tranquility, allegedly.
Paul Caneiro, 59 years old, has been sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences plus 16 years without the possibility of parole, this for his murderous rampage. He was found guilty of killing his brother, Keith Caneiro, who was 50, his sister-in-law, Jennifer, who was 45, nephew, little Jesse, who was 11, and his niece, Sophia, who was just 8 years old. And it was tiny Sophia who was stabbed more than 40 times. The medical examiner said on the stand, "We lost count. She had been stabbed so many times by her uncle, but she fought back. And because she fought back in doing so, she managed to leave evidence on her uncle's pants, DNA, blood. And that would be one of the biggest pieces of evidence against her uncle in this. Isn't that incredible?
I don't know how we come to bring ourselves to commit a crime like this, but to harm a child like that and with such rage, I just, again, can't fathom that even further, how you harm a child like that.
Oh, it's
to take the life of another person and yet be a child, 2 children in this case.
Your blood. I mean,
yeah,
niece and nephew, and just such children who had, nothing.
His greed, his jealousy, and his life spiraling out of control superseded their lives.
Mm-hmm. And so he burned down the house to burn down as much evidence as possible. But the fact that Sophia fought back and left evidence on his pants that police would later find really would be key to this case. Also, the revelation of the brothers fighting over money and how demands had been made like 2 days before the murders to give back the money and make the accounts whole. These murders took place 2 days before Thanksgiving, and it was the family that was murdered. They were going to be holding and hosting Thanksgiving for the family. Can you imagine? As the preparations are getting ready, because 2 days out, you're cooking, you're moving furniture, you're getting the leaves to the table, all this stuff. And I mean, it's just horrific. So let's get to the background here. Paul and Keith, 2 brothers, but there were actually 3 of them. There was a third one, but this case is mostly about these 2. The third one kind of comes into play a little bit later, where the defense has no other strategy other than to say, what if it was the other brother? That
with the outside chance of trying to spark the slightest bit of doubt in the jury. That's the only reason why they even bring that up. And it's disrespectful to the third brother to even pull that.
I know.
It's right? Disrespectful.
Right? You're already mourning the loss of your brother, your sister-in-law, your niece, and your nephew. Your other brother is accused of killing that brother. I mean, the whole family is destroyed here. And now you want to throw shade and suspicion onto this other brother who had nothing to do with it.
I was listening to a podcast, and they were saying how when the first fire started, there was concern before they really knew what had happened. The youngest brother, Corey, came to Paul and was trying to help him gather his family to get out of town because they thought they were being targeted because of their businesses. Here's the youngest brother trying to help protect the evildoer in this case, and really, that wasn't to be the case at all.
Yeah. And, as I watched parts of the trial, and particularly the sentencing, and, Paul had to stand there for an hour while the judge spoke and others spoke. He was motionless. He was without emotion as well. And I just was, he claims he's innocent. He's been convicted of everything. And I just thought to myself, man, he is so cold.
And that was my whole point in the beginning of bringing up what was going on in his past leading up to this, that the signs of something this destructive potentially happening, signs of it, red flags that somebody could have picked up on.
The one thing that the defense tried to say here was that I guess Paul was in some kind of accident and had a very bad injury and had something like 10 surgeries. And as a result of that, co-workers had said was never the same. And look, 10 surgeries is a lot of surgeries. And it's entirely possible that something else was going on. But I don't, even the judge said, I know you talk about your 10 surgeries and I know that you're claiming all sorts of disabilities. He said, but you seem fine to me.
Well, if you want to go with that argument, then you got to admit that you killed your family and own up to that and blame it on the accidents and the surgeries. But that he wants the best of both worlds. He wants to claim some kind of PTSD from these surgeries and also remove himself from being responsible for the deaths of his own family. You can't have it both ways.
No, you cannot. So Paul and Keith were very close. And as we said, there was another brother, Corey. Family grew up in Brooklyn and in Staten Island, and then they both ended up moving to New Jersey, where they were each other's best man at their weddings. They were entrepreneurs. Once they started making money in tech, at this point, they're marrying, they're having children. They bought their multi-million-dollar homes just 12 miles from each other. This says to me, this is a really close family, right? Everything about it, that the brothers are the glue here. So Keith Caneiro, he is the victim here. He founded a company, it switched names a few times, but ultimately it was Square One in the 90s, doing tech consulting and network installation. His company took off, and then he hired his first employee, his brother, Paul. Paul is the one who's been convicted of murder. And so at one point, the company was making, something like $6 million a year. Keith, the victim here, owned 90% of the business. Paul owned 10%. And after their initial success, they acquire another company, a pest control company, and that one appears to have been more Paul's to run, if you will. So while the brothers appeared to have all the trappings of prosperity, tragedy would strike both homes. On November 20th of 2018, on that day, Keith and Paul's homes were both set on fire just hours apart from each other. And Keith and his wife and 2 children would be killed. So like you said, Corey, the third brother, was like, oh my God, now everybody's, because Paul's house was also set on fire. They're after my brothers. They've killed one. They're trying to kill the other one.
Yeah, it was 5 o'clock in the morning that Paul's house was set on fire, or at least the police were called and fire. And then it wasn't until 12:30 in the afternoon when Keith's house was reported to be on fire. So was the fire smoldering, or did he leave his house and then go over to Keith's house and commit the crime? Did he do it in reverse order? Did he set his house on fire and then go and commit these crimes? That there's something seriously wrong with this guy, obviously, but I don't see or didn't hear anything about the parents. And what I want to say is I'm one of 5 children. My dad passed away, and then a few years ago, my mom passed away. And for 50 years of my life, all the birthdays, all the graduations, everything was together as a family. And when my mom passed away, the glue of the family separated all of us, and we all went our separate ways. Now, we don't set our houses on fire, but we don't talk to each other and we don't engage each other as much as we did before. We're kind of like, I don't know if there's some kind of rebellion or revolt or some reaction to being separated from your parents as the guiding light over the family household. But I know when both our parents passed away, there was no glue holding the brothers and sisters together.
It seemed that there was a glue there, a business one, one of family. Again, the closeness, meaning the proximity, and the holidays are coming up, which also sometimes can be a trigger. But in this case, it was just like everything exploded at the same time. It was the fact, and they played these recordings in court, which are fascinating. So what it is the brother who was killed, Keith, the one who suspected Paul was taking money, I guess he had all these surveillance cameras within his home. And what prosecutors introduced were his side of a phone conversation with his brother. So you hear Keith yelling at him, "Where's the money? Where did it go? Give me your password." There are two different phone conversations. And he's yelling at the top of his lungs because it's almost like he's trying to get something that he can't get. He wants the money back, and he wants the passwords to whatever account he's talking about, which was not clear to me because I think there are a lot of accounts involved here, because he wanted to see where the money had gone. And he was furious. He was furious.
He's stealing, Paul is stealing Keith's trust money for his children. And, to pay for his lavish lifestyle. He had a girlfriend on the side. He bought her a fancy sports car, and he had excessive credit card debt. He was living well above his lifestyle, his means, and he's supposed to repay. He's still behind the eight ball, and he's supposed to pay back $80,000. There was no way he was going to be able to do that. So that was the linchpin that drove Paul to this drastic measure.
Right. I think it's almost $500,000 that had disappeared, and then there was the 80,000. I mean, there was money coming out, constantly coming out, and I don't think everything was great at home with Paul, the accused here, because in the affidavits, I believe is where I read this, where the wife said that things weren't great and they were sleeping in separate bedrooms, and this could explain she's not happy if she knows about the mistress, and who knows what she knew about the financial situation. However, and I know that this is probably minor, but it just goes to show you. So remember I said he had all these surgeries and he claimed disability. He actually claimed disability, where you get extra money from Social Security if you can't work. So he was getting Social Security checks for disability. This is according to all the court records I read. And then it appears that good brother was then sending the paycheck to Paul's wife so they would still have income, but because they couldn't pay Paul directly because he was technically disabled. I mean, what more has to be done to satisfy this evil brother?
Yeah, he had just an excessive amount of expenses and debt that he could not keep up with. And he's literally robbing Peter to pay Paul, if you will. And, then the bill came due to repay Peter. And, Paul was not able to do that. And he chose to pull the grenade pin and just blow the whole situation up. People that kill their family, set homes on fire with family, do they honestly think they're going to get away with this? There's just, arson investigation is such a technologically advanced science in the police and fire world, investigative world. They're extremely, as a retired police officer, I am still impressed by the things I hear that they're able to do and retrace and put cases back together of how fire started. And I guess the general public is not aware that you're not going to get away with something like that. I just don't. What does Paul do, in the alternative? Does he say, look, hey, Keith, I can't repay you? Then what does Keith do? I mean,
well, he cuts him off, gets him out of the business, says, you know what, learn to live on your disability check. You're on your own. You figure it out. And, I'm not saying that this is easy, but at least Keith has the wherewithal to continue to make money to support his family. And, ultimately he's going to repay what he can into the kids' trust fund that was for college. Would his brother have called the authorities? That's the part we don't know, because if his brother also threatened to tell the police what he was up to,
That would
would have,
also be another linchpin for Paul to say, you know what? No, you're not.
correct.
I'm going to get away from this, not you.
No,
What, you know, what possibly was he doing? I mean, the girl and the expenses, but what was he doing with the money that he needed to keep feeding that source of debt? I don't. Okay, she has a nice car, but what are you traveling the world? You have a drug problem, a gambling problem?
I was wondering about that, but I guess if you think about it this way, so they're living a lavish lifestyle, meaning they're in the 1%. And so they have expensive homes. He's got 2 kids himself, and everyone's it appears everybody here is driving a Porsche. These things are not cheap.
Yeah.
I can't imagine what the maintenance is on all of this, but if you are the sole breadwinner for a family of 4 and everybody's driving a Porsche and living it up,
Trying to maintain a lifestyle he can't afford.
that money sure goes by real fast. Were there other things going on? Yeah, probably.
Yeah.
I mean, because it did seem like an awful lot of money, but I don't know what it's like to live in their crazy world. Okay, so let's get back to Paul's house a second, because in this case, DNA and then digital forensic evidence will really be important here. Remember the blood DNA of the little girl on Uncle's pants? Very damaging. Even though he set fire to everything, these pants survive. Also, there's going to be that phone call. Remember those 2 phone calls I just talked about where you only hear one side of it and you know for sure that the victim is very upset at his brother because he's accusing him of like, where's the money? Where's the money? And now it's the surveillance cameras at Paul's house, the accused here. Okay, he thinks he's a genius. Paul disables the security cameras at his own home at 1:29 a.m. And the last video that is taken with the cameras, police say, shows Paul walking toward the control center where you would be turning this stuff off. And then boom, it all goes away. Isn't it interesting that he would turn off the security cameras? Oh, of course he had an answer to that. He said, oh, you know what? They're dragging down the Wi-Fi and the internet. It's too slow. And at 1:30 in the morning, I have to get up and I have to turn it off because my internet is too slow. Like, how crazy is that?
It's asinine, really. That's a poor excuse. I don't. Another thing you have to think about is law enforcement can triangulate cell phones, and if he's running back and forth from his house to his brother's house to set the fire and back, they're going to be able to track all of that. In the Lacey Peterson case, Scott Peterson, they tracked him going to the area where he dumped her body, like 90 times, I think it was, because he kept coming back to that part of the river to see if she had resurfaced. But back to this case, there's other technology that, if they didn't use it, was available to them to use. Mm-hmm. Between law enforcement and arson investigators, you're just not going to get away with that type of crime.
No, he was a fool on many counts. At 12:38 p.m., firefighters arrive at the Koltzneck home. This would be Keith's home. And once they got the fire out, they discovered the 4 bodies. And they realized that they didn't die because of the fire. Although the children, this is the sad part, autopsy shows, even though they were stabbed multiple times and they were dying, that it was smoke inhalation that contributed to their death.
They weren't dead when the fire was started.
Correct. Hanging on. So that's when they find Keith in the front lawn. He's suffering from a gunshot wound to the head, several to the head and then to the lower back. Inside, authorities discover wife Jennifer with a gunshot wound to the head, multiple stab wounds to the torso. If you have shot her, why do you need to stab her? Why is this man so angry?
Yeah.
Angry.
Well, he was stealing from the trust fund before all this starts to show you how little he cared about the children. How little he cared about his brother or his brother's family. So, I don't see how somebody can bring themselves to do that. But, when it came to killing the kids, apparently that was not a problem for him.
No. Then they find Jesse, 11, and Sophia, 8, both dead from multiple stab wounds. So Paul originally gets charged with arson. They kind of figure that one out pretty quickly. And then came the murder charges. Now, as they search Paul's home and his vehicles, they found some evidence. The most damning would be in a basket of dirty clothes in the basement. Paul's pants stained with Sophia's DNA. Also, they found a bloody latex glove and the knife that still had Sophia's blood on it. What an idiot.
Yeah, a complete idiot. Very selfish. And I don't know if the word monster had been used in this case. I'm sure it has.
Let's use it.
Yeah, this guy clearly was before the crime and during the crime a complete monster.
Yeah.
His lack of empathy when he's convicted of the crimes and has a chance to finally say something, I'm sorry, anything, that, no, I didn't do it. That's a sociopath right there, a monster.
And to put the whole family, the remaining members of the family, through this trial, because, this all went back to 2018. It's taken a long time to get this guy to trial. He has a wife and kids, too. I mean, yes.
How are they going to live the rest of their lives?
Well, they stand by him.
What's
that? His wife and kids stand by him.
Oh, wow.
And wrote letters of support, to the judge to have mercy on him.
Another thing I was reading when I was researching this case, and I don't know if you want to get into it right now or not, but the estate and what happens to all that, the businesses, and, the whole family is wiped out. So who Keith was going to hand down his stuff to, they're all dead. So was there a secondary or a third level
there's
of...
Corey. There's
right.
the brother, Corey.
Right.
The one who's in prison forfeits everything, I believe.
I don't even know.
To get it.
I don't even know, and they're saying that was a motive. I guess he was listed as a beneficiary at some point. Yeah, I guess as a co-owner of the business.
That was the other thing. There was like a $3 million insurance policy that somehow was connected to the business, and because he was a partner in the business to some degree, he stood to benefit from that, especially if the wife and the kids were out of the way. And then there's the family trust. You get rid of your brother and his heirs, the wife and the kids. Then you are next in line. And I guess poor Corey that they tried to implicate.
He's not thinking of his actions or consequences. He's thinking of other sources of income to feed his financial woes.
Yeah. What a fool. What a fool. So as police are searching the house, Paul's house, and also all the vehicles, they find a big gun safe containing multiple weapons and ammunition, and they claim that they find a 9mm handgun, which seemed to match the shell casings that were found near Keith's body at the Coltsneck residence. Authorities then arrest Paul on 4 counts of first-degree murder, and he's arrested on November 29th of 2018. It really wasn't a very big gap between the charge of arson and then murder, but obviously they wanted more evidence before they brought those charges. And that's when they discovered that there was tension between the brothers and this could possibly be a motive. And when they went through the financial documents, Paul's expenses were out of control, ranging between $300,000 and $400,000 per year, including the credit card bills, the affair, the luxury vehicles, the Audi that he got for the mistress, according to authorities, far surpassing whatever income he was getting here. So remember I said it was Keith who realized 2 days before Thanksgiving that even more money was missing, and now he was done. He was furious. And he's grilling Paul about where that $80,000 went. And it's And as they played this, and I'm watching this, you know, and you're looking at Paul, who's listening to his dead brother, who's like alive in the courtroom, no emotion, zero, zip. So at trial, prosecutors played that conversation, which I thought was really incredible. And according to court records, as I said, Paul was managing to collect some kind of salary through his wife plus the disability payments. Prosecutors say the only way that Paul could inherit money from the trust and the business insurance, I guess there was some interesting policy there, was literally to get rid of all the heirs. Had to get rid of Keith's heirs. And that was the plan here. Now, how did he allegedly pull this off? This is the theory, the working theory. Bad brother Paul goes to his brother's house. He cuts off the power to the house and he cuts off the backup generator. Right? The lights go out and then the backup generator doesn't come on. What do? You go outside to see what's going on. And who's waiting for you? Your evil brother who shoots you right there.
The last person you would think would be there to kill you, for sure.
Right. You think you're just dealing with like, oh, another one is like, what's happened now? Yeah. And then, of course, the wife presumably hears the gunshots, goes toward the front door. She's killed next inside the house. And then you can imagine the kids now are up and hearing things. And then he ends up killing the two children.
Brutal.
Oh, my God. And the fact that the kids were clinging to life for so long, even after being stabbed this many times, that they're clinging to life, that they were still alive when the fire was started. They could have been saved, maybe.
I again, taking the life of another person is one level, but to take the life of a child or children, and those being blood related, is completely unfathomable to me. You'd have to be a sociopath where you have zero empathy about anyone or anything and are only concerned about yourself to do something like that.
The trial finally reached a jury on January 12th of 2026. Prosecutors laid out the case. Paul, again, largely stoic. The only time he showed that he was crying was when the medical examiner was talking about the autopsies of the children and the condition of their bodies and what had been done to them. That's the only time he showed emotion. I'm not even going to say remorse. Emotion. So then, once prosecutors rest, the defense presents their brilliant defense of what happened here. Oh, it wasn't him. It was the other one who had nothing to do with any of this. So the youngest brother, Corey, was never a suspect, and he had nothing to do with the murders at all. So,
and he wasn't connected as a beneficiary to the trust either.
He didn't know. According to prosecutors, Corey wasn't aware that he was even a beneficiary, that there was this particular. So I guess he was just not as involved as the two other brothers were. And there was no evidence. I mean, Corey didn't take any money. There's like, Corey didn't do anything. He didn't do anything. So prosecutors are able to show that evil Paul stole from Keith. This is documented 19 times just in 2018, the year of the murders. Like, it's almost as if he was desperate. And I understand what you're saying. You've asked Rich, like, was there something else going on that led to this desperation? Or was he just completely falling apart?
Yeah, a lot is compressed into a small period in time, but I think the things leading up to that period would kind of fill in the picture as to what was going on. More clearly what was going on there. There's, you just don't flip a switch one day and go full ballistic on. Look at the outcome. He either gets cut out of the business and maybe gets prosecuted for stealing, and he lives and his brother lives, versus he's in prison for life and his brother and their family are all dead. Like, what did he gain? What?
Exactly. He's still in
Yeah,
prison, except all these people died for no reason.
and he doesn't get no financial gain whatsoever.
Nothing.
The only thing is that he can't be held responsible for the money because he's in prison, and he may legally still be responsible, but he's never going to pay that. He's never
No.
going to get out of prison. He's going to die in prison.
Oh, no, he is not getting out. And then, his wife and his 2 kids, well, what are they? Does he have any savings? Because if he doesn't have any savings, I don't know what they're going to live on.
Well, I mean, if he was stealing from the trust fund, I'm going to say he doesn't have much of a savings account.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And the way I understand disability, if you commit a crime, you can't, and you're in prison, you can't collect while you're in prison. So,
Yeah, I think they were also going to get him on insurance fraud, but the judge said that I think they ended up dropping those charges because they seemed like, why waste the court's time and money
right.
prosecuting him for all those other alleged crimes when
that are not going to have any meaning.
No. And why give him an opportunity to leave his jail cell and go, have a day at court and maybe get some snacks on the bus? Like, why?
And more time in the spotlight, more attention about, although it's negative, about him rather than sitting in a jail cell.
So after weeks of the trial, jurors took about 4 hours to come up with their guilty verdict. Done. Paul was convicted on all 15 counts, including 4 counts of first-degree murder, theft, and aggravated arson. Then earlier this week, on May 19th, Paul was sentenced to 4 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole. Even 1 life sentence and the rest of them concurrent would have equaled about the same, but the judge wasn't having it. The judge was trying to prove a point here. No. You're like, we're talking 400 years here, buddy. 400 years.
In a separate case, we had a police shooting down in Cape May County. Dave Douglas, a Lower Township officer, was killed by a man, and he was, I think he pled guilty to life in prison, and he served 30 years. That's a life sentence. And then the parole board released him. We thought he was away for life, natural life. And he maxed out the sentence. He served his 30 years, and the parole board then released him. That's why the judge in this case said, no, you're never getting out of prison. See, if we do concurrent in 30 years, you could technically get out of prison. He's saying, no, you're going to do 30, then 30, then you're never getting out of prison is what he's saying.
Ever. No possibility. We're not leaving any hole for you to slip through.
Correct.
So yeah, he's been called a monster without question. And he just remains so stoic, just standing there, not moving, no expression, and nothing. After the victims' impact statements were read, Paul had an opportunity to say something, which you pointed out, Rich. He could have said, I'm sorry. He could have said something. Nope. He said nothing. His attorney said on his behalf that his client maintains his innocence and has nothing further to add. It's awful. It's just awful. It's awful. It's a horrible case. He's a horrible human being. He's not even a human being. He's just a monster.
No. When you remove yourself from society when you decide to take those actions.
It is time for our comment section. These are the crime cases you all are talking about on social media. You almost waved your hand there prematurely.
I know, it was almost too soon.
Oh my God, I got you. Premature waving, Will.
I'm here. And there's my wave. This week we have a case I'm calling Welcome to the Monkey House. It comes out of Ichikawa, Japan, where 2 American tourists were arrested after invading the zoo enclosure of viral sensation Punch the Monkey.
I love him. I
okay.
love Punch the Monkey, and it's so sad with his little stuffed animal. He's so sad, poor little Punch. I'm going to adopt him.
I'm glad that you've heard of him.
Rich, have you heard of Punch?
I heard it on the news the other day.
Okay.
And
okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, yeah. So for context, I mean, if anyone listening or watching isn't familiar with Punch, he's a young macaque monkey who was abandoned by his mother at this zoo, and without a mother's love, he latched onto an emotional support stuffed animal that was given to him by a zookeeper. Now, this stuffed animal was an orangutan plush, which was made by IKEA, and this story blew up. This thing became so popular. This kind of sad, forlorn looking little monkey dragging around this stuffed animal that this toy is impossible to get. It flew off the shelves at IKEA. This was kind of a big deal. It went super viral. And I say all that because I do think that people's attachment to Punch the Monkey played a role in this in this alleged sort of incident. But for anyone wondering, although he was initially rejected by his mother, Punch there, he has apparently been taken in by some of the other monkeys since in the enclosure, and he's sort of slowly being brought into the social fold there. But like I said, that's relevant because I do think that played a role in these alleged actions. The suspects here, both American nationals. We have 24-year-old Janai Dason, who's a university student, and Neil Jabari Dwan, who is an aspiring singer. They are both charged in this. And authorities say that Janai was the one who actually climbed the fence of the enclosure while Neil was sort of filming the whole thing. So there's a video that's making the rounds on the internet, and it's someone in a blue suit with a red tie, and they're wearing this big emoji mask. It's like a big yellow head with the sunglasses on. And you see this figure jump over the fence of the enclosure and sort of walk in, and they toss a stuffed animal towards a rock formation where a bunch of these macaque monkeys are all sort of hanging out. And the monkeys are clearly interested in what's going on, but they're pretty skeptical of this of this intruder, so they're not really going near. Now, it's unclear what exactly the goal of this entrance was, of this whole thing. Maybe it's just to create sort of a viral moment, something to draw some headlines or something. But this encounter doesn't go on for very long. This is a very popular part of the zoo, especially with Punch's notoriety. And so, zoogoers are all around this place. They're noticing instantly. Pretty quickly, the zoo workers are able to intervene there, and they apprehend both the emoji-clad suspect along with the filming associate here. And now, after they were taken in by zoo workers, they were later turned over to the authorities, where they were arrested on a charge of forcible obstruction of business. And they are currently with the authorities there in Ichikawa. Now, it's unclear if they've entered a plea. It's unclear if they've since bonded out or anything like that. But since the incident, zoo officials obviously conducted safety checks on the animals and the enclosures and stuff themselves. They said there was no abnormalities or anything with any of the animals. And, while no animals or zoo facilities were harmed, this might actually affect future zoogoers hoping to get a look at Punch the Monkey, because the zoo claimed that they're going to strengthen security measures, which might expand sort of viewing restriction areas, and they're also going to add intrusion prevention nets. So, instead of being able to kind of see these macaque monkeys in their natural environment, you're going to have more, there's going to be less viewable to the public, and, your view is going to be more obstructed. So everyone kind of loses in this scenario. And like I said, we still don't have a whole lot of details about what the motivation was, but I'm guessing just, trying to create some sort of a viral moment there with the stuffed animal and the emoji. But
let me say, in this era of going viral,
yes,
we are losing, and I'm making this term up, societal integrity. Animals in the wild, everyone needs to go viral and outdo or get the next viral video. And I'm not even a member of the TikTok world. I get the overflow on Facebook Reels, but I see them all. And animals in the wild, they're losing their place in nature. I can't think of the term that I'm trying to get to, but where their natural habitat, and it applies to other circumstances, a different social setting. people approach law enforcement like we're, I don't know, like we're nothing. And, there was a
Not in
moment.
Japan, though, Rich. In Japan, they do not put up with this garbage.
No, I'm just speaking society in general.
Okay,
But
Japan is like, this
they're
is
trying
not
to
a
go
place I'd
viral,
want
but
to be in trouble.
they don't attack the police there because they're stricter, but they are still trying to go viral nonetheless. I mean, they're
Yeah.
going around the world. That's the thing to do. And some videos are cute. I like them. They're entertaining. But some
Thank
things
you,
just
Rich.
go too far, and
Yeah.
you need to leave the monkeys alone.
This
Yeah.
is ridiculous. And again, we're not even having a discussion about the whole issue, how so many people disapprove of zoos and all this other stuff. But these two, separate of a broader discussion, what is wrong with these two? What is wrong with you? And now you're going to be in a Japanese jail cell. And good luck trying to get out of there. Good luck to you.
Yeah. Well, over there, they even have like much more strict rules than in the United States about even like filming people in public. Like, I mean, you see on the internet, like people in the United States filming people without their consent and stuff sort of all the time. And that's not, it's expressly not allowed there.
Doesn't your sister live in Japan?
She does. Yeah. She lives in Tokyo. So she's not filming people over there. She's not making a lot of content.
We
which
can
is...
move the monkey over to her place.
Exactly. We got a lot of comments on this one. Naturally, it kind of drew some ire because these were both American nationals arrested over there in Japan. Catalina C said, "Please stop embarrassing America," which, yeah, I mean, it's always kind of a bummer that, sometimes internationally, the U.S. has kind of become the Florida man of the global world, which is something we got to work on. Linda B said, "We do not claim this POS. We love Punch," which, yeah, I mean, who doesn't love Punch the Monkey? It's just heartwarming kind of content.
And you know what? Let me be harsh here. Punch has a lot more views than these two were ever going to get for their stupid video. There you go.
You tell them, Anna.
Yeah, you can't just piggyback onto the actual celebrity.
No.
That's not
Punch
how it
is bigger
works.
than you two.
Yeah, that's not how it works. Rangoon said, "Stop monkeying around," which, yeah,
Nice.
classic.
Nice.
Yeah,
I like it.
We got a comment here from Fleora, who is possibly crafting a defense for this suspect. They said, "Your Honor, does it look like my client has a giant yellow head?" Which cracked me up, given the mass nature of the incident. But that'll do it for this section of our comments. Anna, do you have any additional comments you'd like to share from our wonderful YouTube viewers?
Yes, I do. As you know, we have a vibrant community. It's my favorite word. I use it every week. If you miss a week, don't worry. I'll say it again. We have a vibrant community on YouTube. And this is about last week's podcast, which is really crazy. It's basically about an OnlyFans model who ends up taking a plea in a case where her client asked her to do very dangerous things and he died in the process of this. And it also included like gluing things to his body. It was just it's just horrible. Anyway, Connor Passerius 7251 posts, "This is literally insane." It is. The whole thing is, I mean, gluing boots to your feet and then gluing sex toys to your mouth and gluing your eyes shut. And that's not even what killed the poor man. He suffocated to death because he had a bag and duck. It was horrible. Just really horrible. Okay. And then Madman's Playground post, "In my opinion, that video saved her the charge of first-degree murder." What ends up happening, y'all, is that she is taking videotapes of pleasuring herself. She's recording pleasuring herself while he's struggling to breathe. And so it was evidence of what was happening in real time, and she was distracted from what was happening to her client on the floor. Anyway, the post continues, "If not for the tape, all the police are seeing is a man wrapped in plastic with a glued up face and a sex toy in his mouth as a bag taped over his head. She was extremely lucky that she recorded it, taped it." And you know what? Yes, because the issue was, did she mean to kill him? And no, she did not. And then Andy Maddox posts, Why glue effing shoes to your feet? Glue? What the F? I don't know.
People were disturbed by that one.
People are upset by gluing things.
Yeah.
Anyone who's, right?
I think that comment is interesting too about like the video actually being helpful to her. Because I guess in my mind, like the way that I, read the story and kind of like put things together, it was like, oh, like maybe that did hurt her. But I kind of like that point that like that kind of proves, that there wasn't really something malicious going on. Or I think it can demonstrate that, because otherwise, yeah, you just have like a dead guy with a bag taped around his head, and it's kind of it's certainly a trickier situation to try and decipher. I mean, I guess they still would have access to all the messages and stuff that were exchanged, but I thought that was an interesting comment. I think that's an interesting note.
That's because our viewers and listeners are quite astute.
It's true.
Not just vibrant, but astute.
Vibrant and astute. You can find it all over on our YouTube. That's at True Crime News. Thank you to everybody who commented on this one. You can do that over on our post tab. We're also across all social media at My True Crime News. But until next week, don't do crime.
All right, my friend Rich, what are you up to these days? Where can people find you? I know you still work on cases, and there's that one case that you'll forever be working on until it gets solved. Where is Mark, your book?
That's right. Amazon.com, Where is Mark? And I am no longer part of the investigation, but as I receive tips, as you do, I forward them to the prosecutor's office and try and help in any way I can with that. So we're still looking for Mark Heimball. He was disappeared or taken November 25th of 1991. Anna, you covered the case as a reporter, and it touches all of us. And I just like to find closure for Mark and for his family.
I know. This morning I was thinking, because you were going to come on here, obviously I think about Mark many times throughout my everyday, as I think about the sadness of what was taken and this little boy that's missing with the red hair and the freckles. And I was thinking to myself, maybe, you and I have an idea of who likely did this. And someone who, was a suspect and is in prison on other charges. And I was just thinking, can you just tell us where Mark is? Can we just do that? And I'm not saying to absolve anyone of anything, but can you just tell us where he is?
They can't because they're eligible for parole for those prison charges. And if they admit to being involved in something else, even if we're not going to charge them, or waive the punishment part of it, they're never going to get paroled for what they're in prison for now. And they have about 10-year window where they have to finish out the rest of their term. And they're thinking they're going to get paroled before the end of that 10 years or so. And if they say something now about being involved in Mark's case, they're going to have to max out those 10 years. And I'm sure they don't want to do that. So even if he wanted to, he's not going to, because it would ruin his eligibility for parole. Parole board would never parole him.
Well, duh, right?
Yeah.
I just, and then do you believe that Mark was disposed of just by one person? Do you think that it's possible that I just want to find his body and put him to rest for his mother, his father, and his brother who are still alive?
Well, it depends on the means of that disposal, if that's what happened, and if it's in something like concrete or even buried. I mean, we're talking 34 years now. I'm going on 35. There's going to be very little remains left at this point.
But there'll be some, and we've seen that case over case.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh.
It's a horrible case.
It is horrible. So, Rich, if anybody's got any ideas, every time you come on, someone will send an email or something. Where can they reach you?
Where is Mark?
Right?
Whereismark.com? Yeah. They can leave messages there.
Okay. All right. And you can find me at Anna G News, Anna with one N. You can find everything we do on all social media at My True Crime News, kind of keeping it simple there. You can find this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Be part of the vibrant community. We love you. Also, you can receive our newsletter at truecrimenews.com. So until next week, this is True Crime News, the podcast. I'm your host, Anna Garcia. And as we now say, crime never stops, and neither do we.